Oh hey, and welcome to another episode of the Blue Wizard Bakes. I'm Joe the Blue Wizard. Happy New Year! That's right kids, it's January. But not only is January the beginning of a new year, a fresh start, it is also the time of year that we have to stop and celebrate the birthday of a very, very important human being. No, not him. No, not him either. Both of those men are very important, especially to our nation here in the United States of America. However, there is someone who is very important to me and very important in the food world who also has a birthday in January that we need to celebrate. That's right, kids. January is the birth month of my love, Nigella Lawson. Now I thought to myself, what better way to celebrate Nigella's birth month than to show you the very first recipe that I ever saw Nigella make on television. And that is Nigella Lawson's Totally Chocolate chip cookies. These cookies are from Nigella's cookbook, Nigella Express, and from the series that she made by the same title. As you can see, I've used this cookbook a lot. There's a lot of great recipes in here for you guys that are quick and easy for you guys to make, and they are fantastically delicious, and they pack a huge flavor punch. So I recommend this book incredibly. Nigella Express, I would go out and buy a copy right now because it is truly one of my favorite cookbooks in my collection. Now, as I said, these Totally Chocolate chip cookies are the first recipe I ever saw Nigella make on TV, and it was truly love at first sight. I thought that this recipe just sounded so fantastic. It's a delicious chocolate chip cookie with not one, not two, but three different kinds of chocolate. Now, I have to say I've been making this recipe for many years, and many of you who know me in real life have seen me make it before, and some of you have actually asked me for the recipe and I have declined and said no. Well, I'm sharing the recipe with you here today and telling you exactly where I got it from. A lot of times when I get a recipe from another chef or another cook, I will take and make it and then sort of modify it and make it my own. But this recipe from Nigella is so perfect that you just cannot mess with it. It is perfect just the way that it is. So I'll be showing you the recipe exactly as it is out of the cookbook today. But that's enough talking about it. Let's celebrate Nigella's birthday the right way. Let's get started. All right, as always, we're going to begin by preheating our oven. Today we're going to be setting our ovens to 325 degrees. In addition, we also want to take and get all of our ingredients together, so this way we have everything where we need it, when we need it. So let's get cracking. All right, there it is. Everything that we need, all of our ingredients and our equipment. If you ever want to know what the ingredients are to a recipe and their measurements, don't forget you can always get them in the description below the video. To begin making our Totally Chocolate chip cookies, we're going to start off with our dry ingredients. In a bowl, I have measured out 1 cup of flour. To that, I'm going to be adding 1 teaspoon of baking soda as well as a ½ teaspoon of salt. In addition, I'm going to take and add in 1/4 cup of cocoa powder. This is our first chocolate addition. Now, this is cocoa powder, unsweetened. It is not the same thing as hot cocoa mix. Don't add hot cocoa mix, that has a bunch of sugar and stuff in it. We don't want that. This is pure unsweetened cocoa powder. A professional chef would probably take and sift this mixture to make sure that you get out any lumps and stuff, but I really don't have time for that. So all I do is I take a whisk and I whisk the mixture together until I notice that it's making a nice, homogeneous mix. Something like that, all right? Just so that you can see that there's no lumps in there and it looks like a nice even mixture. So now that we have our dry ingredients done, it's time that we move on to our wet ingredients. To start off with the wet ingredients, I have already added 1 stick or ½ cup of softened butter into this bowl. To that 1 stick of softened butter, I'm going to add in 2 different kinds of sugar. I'm adding in brown sugar, a ½ cup of brown sugar, and white sugar, plain white granulated sugar, and that's a 1/4 cup. I'm going to take my mixer and I'm going to mix that together. Now, one thing that I'm noticing as I'm mixing this up is that the brown sugar that I'm using is actually a little bit old, so it's kind of lumpy, and that's okay. So all you need to do is just keep making sure to mix it together and keep beating it until the lumps come out. You also want to make sure to scrape the sides of the bowl a couple of times to make sure that you push everything to the middle of the bowl. It'll make it easier for the mixer to get to the lumps and break them apart. If you're using a stand mixer, it'll probably go a little bit faster than if you were using a hand mixer like I'm using today. All right, I'd say that's nicely mixed. So the next thing that we want to do is add in some of our other wet ingredients. One of the other wet ingredients that we have to add is an egg. Now, Nigella, when she makes these, instructs you to make sure that you're using a very cold fridge egg because that's the way that she was told to make it. She does it because that's what she was told to do. I do it because I'm lazy and I never bring my eggs to room temperature, even though technically you're supposed to. But I don't really ever plan my baking ahead really all that much, and so I always use an egg cold from the fridge. But it is especially important in this recipe. Why? Because Nigella says so. And then mix it again. So the next ingredient that we're going to add into our mix is our second chocolate that is going into this mix. And that is going to be 4 ounces of semi-sweet or bittersweet, whatever type of chocolate really that you want to put in here. It's just important that you get 4 ounces of chocolate and melt it down. The melted chocolate is going to give a nice texture and a good flavor into this recipe. So I'm going to add that in now. Want to make sure to get every last drop of chocolate. These aren't called totally chocolate chip cookies for nothing. In addition to the chocolate, I'm also going to be adding in 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And as you guys should know by now, I never actually measure vanilla, so it's always just about a teaspoon. A little bit more. Then beat it up again. Doesn't it look fantastic? And if you could only smell it, oh my gosh, this stuff smells awesome already. You could just smell the chocolate coming off. And then we added the vanilla, that also is throwing some smells. Ooh, fantastic. All right, so now it's time that we're going to merge together the wet and the dry ingredients. As someday, Nigella and myself will emerge together as one in marriage. Just kidding. Nigella, please don't file a restraining order. I promise. I'll leave you alone. So, but anyway, let's take our dry ingredient mix that we made and add it in to our wet ingredient mix. A lot of times you might have done that a little bit more slowly, but in this case, you can add all of it just as once. Just make sure that whenever you're beating it in with your mixer that you start on a low speed so you don't have a big, flour cocoa cloud arising around you. Now I've actually stopped it a little bit short of making it perfectly homogeneous, as you can see. I've got a lot of dry bits around here. The reason I'm going to do that is I want to make sure that I am not over mixing this flour mixture. Whenever you mix flour together with any sort of liquid, it starts to form gluten. And though gluten is good and it's going to give our cookies a nice rise to them, we don't want to develop too much gluten or else it'll make the cookies tough. So I'm just going to take and use my spatula for the rest of it. Perfect, beautiful, fantastic. So now it's time for us to add in our very last chocolate, the third chocolate that is going into this mixture. And that is some regular semi-sweet chocolate chips. I'm gonna add 2 cups of semi-sweet chocolate chips into the mix, and again, use just my spatula to mix the whole thing together until all of the chocolate chips are evenly distributed throughout the batter. You can just hear the sound of the chocolate chips crackling against each other as you mix it up. It is one of my favorite sounds in the world. Maybe I'm weird, I don't know. And there you go, that's the mix done. So the next thing that we need to do is dish out our batter onto our cookie sheets. So here I have a standard cookie sheet and I have lined it with a silicone mat. Now you don't have to use a silicone mat if you don't want to. You can of course just use parchment paper to keep the cookies from sticking to the tray. I'm using the silicone mat because I have it, so if you have it, you might as well use it. And I highly recommend them. So I'm going to measure out the cookie dough using a cookie scoop. I call it a cookie scoop. Some people might call it an ice cream scoop. The reason why I call it a cookie scoop is because I never use it for ice cream. I only ever use it for cookies. Now, the one that I'm using fits in about 1/4 cup of dough. So if you don't have a cookie scoop, you can easily just use 1/4 cup measure and a spatula in order to dish these out. So I'm going to take and just place it into the scoop and then scoop it out onto the tray. It's just that easy. That's what makes having the cookie scoop such a great thing, a great tool to have, is because it makes the process so much easier and so much faster than if I had to scoop these out individually. So I'm gonna scoop out the rest of these. The recipe makes about 13 cookies total. I'm gonna put 6 onto this tray and then 7 onto another tray. So here we go. All right, so you want to make sure that the cookies are evenly spaced on the sheet. So I'm just going to take and move the balls around just to make sure that they have enough room to rise and spread, okay? And that's what makes having such a nice thick batter such a nice thing, because you can easily move things around and correct any mistakes that you have. Now, I was actually able to get 14 cookies out of this mix instead of my regular 13, so yay, extra cookie. All right, so again, just want to make sure that those are nice and evenly spaced on both trays. Okay, and there we go, we're ready to bake. Our cookies are scooped out, so now it's time to get them into the oven. I'm going to be placing these cookie trays into the oven on both the upper middle and lower middle racks of the oven. You want to make sure that they get a nice even heat. We want to bake these for about 18 minutes, and halfway through I'm going to rotate the pans, again just to make sure that we have a nice even bake. While those cookies are baking, I just want to make sure to take the time to remind you that if you really like this video, please make sure that you hit the like button down below. Also, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button, because it really helps me out. I'm really trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, and you hitting that button is really going to help me towards my goal. Also, if you want to make sure that you are notified every time that I post a new video, make sure to hit the little bell icon so that you get notifications every time that I post a new video. If you want to keep up with me on any of my other bakes that I don't put on camera, or if you just want to talk to me and chat, or if you want to share with me any of the bakes that you make yourself, you can do all of that through social media. You can make sure to find me on both Instagram and Twitter at Joe the Blue Wiz. Another way that you can get a hold of me is through the comments down below this video. I always make sure to read every single comment, and I try to respond to as many of them as I can. So if you have any questions or comments or any ideas for future videos, you can definitely leave me a comment down there and I'll be sure to see it. Now, after 18 minutes of baking, you're going to go to take these cookies out of the oven, and you're going to say to yourself, I don't think that these cookies are done. I promise you, they are. So take them out of the oven and set them to cool on the cookie sheets for about 5 minutes, just to let them firm up a little bit more. Then you're going to take and transfer them to a wire rack to cool completely. And here they are, the finished product. You could just, again, smell all the chocolate coming off of it. These are just fantastic. Now, these have cooled down, but they're still a little bit warm, because as we should all know, eating a warm chocolate chip cookie is 10 times better than eating a cold chocolate chip cookie. So let's try one now. Look at that break. Oh, it's like just melts in your mouth type of goodness. Oh. I'm sorry, I need a minute. Guys, if you really want a truly winner recipe, you've got to know that this recipe is it. Nigella Lawson's Totally Chocolate chocolate chip cookies are thebomb.com. They have everything that you could possibly want in delicious cookie dessert. I know that I joke a lot about Nigella being my future wife and the true love of my life, but I do want to say and take a second seriously. Nigella, if you're watching, you have truly been an inspiration to me in my culinary journey. You are truly someone who I look to for inspiration in both my cooking and my baking, and I truly appreciate all of the hard work that you do to share your recipes with the world. So happy birthday. Now, if you, the viewer, want to make this recipe, please make sure that you get the recipe down below the video and do it. I know that your family and friends will love it, and you'll love it just as much as I do. If you do try to make this recipe, please share a picture with me on one of my social medias. I truly, truly love when you guys send me feedback and share with me the pictures of the bakes and creations that you guys make. Well, that's all that we have time for today here on the Blue Wizard Bakes. Remember guys, you don't have to be a professional chef or even a wizard in order to make magic in your kitchen.